Grace to you and peace and welcome. You're listening to Second on the Mount, a podcast of sermons from Second Presbyterian Church in beautiful Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Ben Brannan, Associate Pastor for Youth and Young Adults. And each week it is our hope that from the pulpit God will twist and mold our words to land upon the listener's ears in a meaningful way that will inspire faith, encourage hope, and cultivate love in action. Thanks for tuning in. We're so glad you're here with us. Please subscribe and share, and I pray that through our words, you may grow closer to God. Would you pray with me? Holy God, as your word is read and proclaimed, let something essential happen. Something more than entertaining, something more than ordinary. Let something essential happen. Something that wakes us up to your presence and gives us courage to follow where you lead. God before us, God within us, God around us. Amen. You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up in the middle of what's going on. This quote from the 2010 Christopher Nolan movie Inception brings to life the fragile line between what is imagined and what is real. The premise of the movie is that what happens deep within us might change the way we live when we wake up. The story follows a professional thief, Dom Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who specializes in corporate espionage by entering people's dreams to extract secrets. In one scene, Cobb's team goes to an underground lab where people are sleeping, all connected to a shared dream world. And they're there every day. One character looks at and asks the elderly man who manages the place, "They come here every day to sleep?" The man answers, "No, they come to be woken up." The dream has become their reality. They come to be woken up. That's a strange sentence. It's a strange scene. It's a strange movie. Normally, we think waking up means leaving the dream behind and returning to what is real. But in that scene, in that movie, waking up is more complicated. The dream has become reality. Or maybe the dream has revealed something about reality that ordinary life had hidden from them. And I think that is where Jacob finds himself in our passage today. So listen for the reality he wakes up to, and listen for the word of God. Genesis 28, verses 10 through 19a. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and laid down at that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and through you. Know that I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it." And he was afraid. And he said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar. and poured oil on the top of it. And he called the place Bethel. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Where did you see God today? That is one of the questions our youth were asked each night during our evening devotion time while in the Dominican Republic. Where did you see God today? The answers they gave always varied. I saw God in the children. I saw God in the solid rock staff. I saw God at the construction site while shoveling debris or moving lumber or digging trenches for new footers. I saw God when the construction team said it was time for lunch. I saw God in the faces of the children we carried on our shoulders in the barrio. I saw God in my friends. Every answer was different, but they carried the same sort of surprise. And if you listen carefully, what they all are really saying is this: I saw God where I wasn't expecting to. You see, mission trips are never simply about building a wall, painting a school, or leading vacation Bible school. Those things matter, of course. They matter deeply, but if that's all that happens, then we've missed the point. Mission is relational. And being relational, mission changes people. Or perhaps I should say it this way: mission changes how people see. Mission opens our eyes to what we so often miss, what we overlook in others, in ourselves, and the places we go. Among the many things I could mention about the trip we had, there is one story I want to start with. Shelley Lyons first went on this mission trip with our church 11 years ago. She has spoken about how deeply that experience shaped her and how overwhelming, in the best sense of the word, those first emotions were. This year, she returned as an adult chaperone, and beside her was her oldest daughter, Madeline. One night during evening devotion, Shelley spoke directly to Madeline and indirectly to us all, saying how wonderful it was to witness her own daughter experience what she was able to experience 11 years ago. Shelley said it was a dream come true. To see your daughter with a smile so big, your heart bursts open. To watch your child discover the same God who met you years before. To see another generation awaken to a grace that changed your own life. To see and realize that God is still changing lives, still calling, still surprising, still keeping promises generation after generation. Shelley did not merely watch her daughter work or serve or lead vacation Bible school. She watched God keep a promise. And that's exactly what happens in Jacob's dream. Genesis 28 is Jacob's story, but it is also the continuation of a promise made before Jacob was even born. Remember, years earlier, God called Abraham and made a promise. Go from your country to the land I will show you. I will bless you. I will make of you a great nation. In you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. You remember that. And I know you do because I preached a 2-week mini-series on it 4 weeks ago. God made that promise to Abraham and renewed that promise with Isaac. Now, one night in the wilderness, God speaks it again to Jacob. Appearing in a dream, God says, "The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your offspring. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go." The covenant has not ended. It has continued into another generation. Not because Abraham's family has been faithful. Quite honestly, they haven't. Not because Jacob deserves it. He certainly doesn't. The promise continues because God is faithful. And we need to understand just how astonishing that is in this story, because Jacob is not on some peaceful spiritual retreat. He is not on a sabbatical to rest and study and dive deep into missional opportunities that lie ahead of this church like our senior minister is doing. He is not traveling to a holy site with a journal, a candle, and a quiet expectation that heaven might finally open up if he sits still long enough. No, Jacob is running. Jacob is running for his life. He has deceived his father. He has taken the blessing meant for his brother Esau, who now vows revenge. Rebekah knows the family is about to break open even further, so Jacob is sent away. He leaves home not as a spiritual hero, but as a refugee running from his own choices. And he finds himself between places. Behind him is conflict and betrayal. Ahead of him is uncertainty. Around him is wilderness, and beneath his head is a stone. And that is where God meets him. If we were choosing the moment for God to renew the covenant promise, I doubt we would choose this one. But the God of Abraham and Isaac does not wait for Jacob to reconcile his past or arrive safely in the future that awaits him. God comes to him on the road at night in a dream. Now, this does not excuse Jacob's deception. Grace does not pretend that our choices do not matter. But grace refuses to let our worst choices become the final truth about us. The covenant is not secured by Jacob's character. It is secured by God's faithfulness. And so in his dream, Jacob sees a ramp set up on earth, reaching into heaven, angels of God ascending and descending upon it. For centuries, artists have painted this scene as if heaven is sending reinforcements down to earth. But the ramp is not simply one-way transportation. It is revealing that the traffic between heaven and earth has never ceased. It is God pulling back the curtain for just a moment so Jacob can see what has always been true. The wilderness is not empty. The darkness is not abandoned. The road between one life and another is not beyond the reach of God. Because God was there. Jacob simply didn't know it. You see, the dream does not take him away from reality. The dream wakes him up to reality. The encounter changes Jacob, yes, but it does not create God's presence. It awakens Jacob to God's presence. And that is good news for us. Because so much of faith is not discovering that God has finally arrived. It is waking up to the God who was always there. Already working, already loving, already calling. Friends, that is transformation. Not God becoming more faithful, but us becoming more aware. And that is what happened to many of our youth in the DR. Did the Dominican Republic suddenly become holy because our youth arrived? Of course not. God was already there. What changed was our youth. What changed was how they saw. Our youth began to see things differently. A piggyback ride became more than play. It became a shared joy between two children of God. Holding hands became more than a silent gesture. It became a sign of belonging that did not need translating. And the tears that came when it was time to say our goodbyes, well, those tears became a visible sign of the invisible love that formed between people whose lives might otherwise never have crossed. Those tears became a sign of God's love that binds us together in grace. You see, those moments did not create God's presence. They revealed it. The wilderness did not suddenly become holy because Jacob noticed it. Jacob noticed that it had been holy all along. And then Jacob wakes up afraid and says, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. How awesome is this place?" We use the word awesome casually these days. A good meal is awesome. Finding a close parking spot is awesome. Air conditioning in July is awesome. But Jacob means something deeper. Biblically, awe is not casual excitement. The Hebrew carries the sense of reverent fear and trembling wonder, the overwhelming awareness that you are standing in the presence of the Holy One. Awe is realizing that reality is larger than you thought, that God is nearer than you imagined, and that the ground beneath your feet is filled with a holiness you did not create and cannot control. Awe is what happens when a stone pillow becomes an altar, when the wilderness becomes a sanctuary, when the middle of nowhere becomes the house of God, when you realize that heaven and earth are not so far apart after all. Christians throughout history have called these thin places, moments or locations where the veil between heaven and earth is pulled back. But perhaps every place belongs to God. So perhaps thin places do not reveal where God is. They reveal where our eyes have finally opened. It might not be the veil between heaven and earth that is pulled back. It might be the veil that covers our eyes that is removed. The Dominican Republic became a thin place for our mission team. The barrios became a thin place. The construction site, the cabana at the guest house, all of it became a place where eyes were opened. And if every place belongs to God, then a hospital room can become a thin place too. A classroom, a prison cell, a neighborhood, a sanctuary, your very own kitchen table can become a thin place. Not because God finally shows up, but because we finally notice. We finally wake up to see that God's presence was already there. And once Jacob wakes up, he can never look at the world the same again. He takes the stone that had been beneath his head, stands it upright, pours oil over it, and names the place Bethel, the house of God. Nothing around him has changed. Esau is still angry. Isaac is still aging. His mistakes are still behind him. Laban is ahead in Haran. The journey is still uncertain, but Jacob is now different. Long before God changes Jacob's name to Israel, God changes Jacob's vision. And every transformation begins there, by seeing differently. And that may be one of the greatest gifts our youth have brought home this week. It wasn't the souvenirs, not the photographs, certainly not the machetes, but a clearer vision, a different way of seeing. Yet now comes the hard part. Can they keep seeing? Because it's one thing to recognize God in the Dominican Republic. It's another thing entirely to recognize God on Elm Street, on a comfortable beach vacation, to recognize God in the grocery store, in the difficult neighbor, in the person whose politics make our blood pressure rise, in the lonely teenager, in the exhausted caregiver, in the immigrant learning English for the first time, in the child who asks too many questions, in the elderly whose memory is fading, in the place you assumed was empty of God's goodness, in the faces you have not yet learned to see. So, beloved, are you ready to be woken up? Not from reality, but to reality itself. To the truth that God is already here in this place where you sit. And God is already there in the places you will go and the people you will meet this week. Because too often we assume some places are full of promise and others are only full of need. Too often we assume some people are givers and others are takers. Too often we assume some communities have wisdom and others are just problems to be solved. But Jacob teaches us that our assumptions about holy ground are too small. He thought he was sleeping on a rock, but he was sleeping on a promise. He thought he was sleeping in the middle of nowhere, but he was sleeping at the gate of heaven. Because the traffic between heaven and earth is not limited to the places we already consider holy. Jacob wakes up and exclaims, "How awesome is this place?" The place where he was afraid, where he was guilty, alone, unsure of what to come next. And our youth woke up and exclaimed, "How awesome is this place?" The place where piggyback rides are not earned. The place where hands are held despite economic difference. The place where tears flow from American youth and Dominican children because love transcends language and geography. Friends, this place is awesome. And if God can be present there, then God can be present anywhere. And so I pray that we, the world, will wake up to notice the ground upon which we stand and the moments we share are both holy and sacred, because God is already there. We just didn't know it yet. May it be so.
Second Presbyterian, finding direction by following Jesus.